Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Kelly's Chronicles. So happy to have you guys all back here this week. Hope everybody's week was wonderful. My husband and I are out on our next tour. We're out on a gentleman's tour called Jason Bonham. And so we're out doing that. We're going to be out here for about a month and another week. And we've been having fun. It's just the two of us, it's two trucks. We're only on our second show with that one. Other than that, we've been having a really great week. We've got our favorite guest back here with us this week, Dad, Chuck. How's your week been going? How have you been doing?
Oh, real good. Yeah, I've been. We're waiting to get the rest of the flooring. We have like 90% of the flooring down in the living room, but we had to order 11 more boxes. We're gonna do the entryway also, so it'll be come in the house. It'll be the same flooring all the way through the house.
Very
So we
nice.
decided we were going to put down that glue down LVT stuff, and we decided that kind of no,
It'd be nicer with,
because this is supposed to be waterproof flooring.
which is what you
That's
need.
one of the selling points for us. It's waterproof, so you can put it in the kitchen.
And an entryway, which is where a lot of the snow and the mud and the muck comes in. Idaho's well known for being.
Yeah, we'll put down mats and stuff. It won't be just like people coming in with snow up to their knees. We'll have it. We'll have it pretty well taken care of. We got an airlock and everything. You got to consider those things when you live in the northern Rockies. You're gonna have snow and mud and all that. So you got to live with it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm
I've been
excited to
I've
see
been in
it.
that. Yeah, I've been in that before in Alaska and even Wisconsin and
Oh, I was gonna
Arkansas.
say,
Got pretty bad, pretty nasty. Because Arkansas would get they get a couple feet of snow occasionally.
every
And
once in a while.
yeah, and they had no snow removal equipment, which made it
No.
a lot
No,
more weird
not
than
prepared for winter.
it is. Those Idaho boys, they're out there with a snowplow right away. In Arkansas, it'd be
Waiting for it. They're like,
what we're gonna do about that there white stuff on the ground. We'll
most
just let it melt.
they're like that. They just don't get snow, and when it falls, it's like, whoa, what do we do? Remember that story about you and your friends seeing the frost on the ground? It was like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
That's weird. So,
And Dad never shoveled snow.
oh, he didn't.
All the time all the time he's in Arkansas, he never shoveled snow that I know of. He let it melt. He said, "Nah, it'll be gone in a couple of days," and it was
It was.
gone in a couple of days.
Yeah, the longest we ever had snow stick around was a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember it being any longer than that.
Yeah.
It just melt away. All back to where it was. Wouldn't last at all. It'd warm up, and that was our usual programming for Arkansas. So yeah, that wasn't. We'd be out there with our big Michigan snow shovel, and the neighbors look at us like we were crazy. What's that?
What's that silver thing there?
They have these big like scoops. That it's a popular thing in Michigan. We even have like a scoop ornament that you guys bought in Michigan, and big deal.
It was a silver bear.
A silver bear. That's
made it.
right. The silver bear. It was a big deal when you got that. You got your snowplow and your silver bear.
Yeah.
So, well, that's good that you're getting the floor done, and I can't wait to see it when we come out there for Christmas. I'm really excited about that. Well, that is awesome. I made a post on Facebook for everybody to read and join us if they can. I do want to say one thing about this podcast, and just kind of a side note. I didn't tell you about this, sorry. But I do want to say that we come on here, we're not only sharing stories, but we're working through PTSD. We're working through memory recall, which is really good for cognitive health, especially for individuals at your age, Dad. And I think that this is something that's not only fun, but it's helping with mental health. It's helping you to work through some stuff. I know you've been going to a therapist for, I can't remember how long you said you've been going to a therapist for your PTSD.
Well, I had a break. I didn't do therapy when I was on a mission, but I'd done like 2 years before the mission. So looking back at 2016, and then I've been seeing this therapist for, well, like 4 or 5 years now, ever since I've been in
Yeah.
Idaho. Same,
So,
well, I had different, I got a pretty steady therapist now.
hmm,
I've been with him for over a year, and he is awesome.
that's good.
Member of the church, and really, he adds a lot of spirituality to the session, which
Good.
helps me because it gives me a connection. A lot of them,
Which you,
they don't have you don't have any connection to
yeah,
these people. They're just like and they try to. As a matter of fact, therapists try to avoid any personal um, connection. They
spiritual
want you to
connection,
remain anonymous,
spirituality.
kind of, and just be like this, helper, anonymous helper, but not Dan. He's awesome.
Good.
He's
That's really good.
he's opened up to me a lot and became a friend.
That's good.
And
So,
sometimes that's what you need
yeah,
an understanding friend.
absolutely.
Because I wouldn't go and try to do this with Al, even though Al's a wonderful guy,
Yeah.
good friend. But I don't want to get involved in my
Yeah.
therapy. I mean, come on, let's just be buddies and go out and get a soda.
Yeah. So, kind of going back to why we're doing this. We're not only just doing this because it's fun, and we're making a record for our family to go back and
Yeah,
watch. Danny and I want to have kids someday, and I'm sure my siblings probably want to have kids someday. And one of my siblings already does, and it's for our kids to go back and watch and enjoy, for us to go back and have these stories. But I think it's also a mental health awareness that sometimes you just need to talk about things, and you need to share things, and it helps you to work through them in your mind, in your soul, to work through your, as they call it, your inner child and your shadow work. The reason why we are doing this is not only for stories and for having kind of like a documentation of your life, kind of putting your life like a book into a YouTube podcast. We're doing it because we have this mental health awareness for not only just your PTSD, but we're going to get a lot more into you growing up with ADHD, going through life with that. There's going to be quite a few things that we talk about, and so there's going to be a lot of mental health awareness during these videos.
yeah,
That's kind of just what I wanted to point out, why we do these videos, why they're so important, why they're important for us and our family, and just that we have a lot of fun. We love coming out here, Dad, you and I, we get to spend time together. We have a blast. It's great. It's a lot.
yeah.
So,
And I'm still working on that what's that thing that Vicky got for me?
oh,
That,
what's a
yeah,
story?
can't remember now what it is.
Stories. What was it?
Yeah, a storybook or something like that. But I'm still working on that. It's got like they ask you questions and then you answer the question,
Yeah,
and it turns out to be an autobiography,
which is really
So
cool. So we have a lot
and
of,
it'll be printed and I'll put pictures in there. I'll have more pictures in there than I do on here. It's better, with a book. You can just print it,
well,
and
and
or you
while
can
I'm
just put it
while I'm
right where.
home for while I'm back at the house for Christmas, I'm gonna be rummaging through the records and the pictures and finding what I want. So I'm gonna have a free
Yeah,
for all.
I found a trove of them yesterday.
Oh,
I
good.
found a box. Yeah, I don't know how they got in the box, but I got
But you
it
got it.
like has one of the earliest pictures of me. I'm probably about 2 with
Oh,
Larry.
great. Okay.
It would be he'd be 7, and I got that picture, and then there's another bunch of pictures somewhere that shows me as a 6 month old, 8 month old baby sitting on the lawn
Oh,
and from the
good.
grandma.
All
This one I found yesterday is pretty early, but there's one, and then I got pictures of mom. I got pictures of dad when he was a baby, Grandpa Olson holding dad when he was like 5 or 6 months old. Then I got a
Wow.
picture of Uncle Emil, who's my great uncle, Grandpa Olson, and me sitting on a couch. And that's just
Those are
those are
great.
priceless
Yeah.
pictures.
Well, that's
I don't know
great.
where they came from. They're just kind of like, there they are.
Well, that's great.
So it'll be good to get those uh, somehow preserved and put into. I kind of leery of digital.
Yeah.
It's better to have a paper copy of everything. Have
Oh, absolutely. Digital
actual
paper.
photographs,
Good.
an actual album with photographs in it. That
Definitely.
way, and you can make copies of that too. I could make 5 albums, one for me and one for each of the kids,
Hmm.
and then you'd have that a physical picture. So if something happened to me or house burned down or whatever, you would still have those
Absolutely.
pictures and these are 100-year-old pictures.
Of
These are,
course.
this is
Really.
going back, this is back in the 20s. Dad was born in 1920. So Grandpa Old and Dad was taken because Dad was born in April of 20. So this is probably in the fall of 1920.
Yeah.
So that's 100 years old
That's
plus.
all.
We don't want to lose those.
No, no.
And
And that's
yeah,
the digital stuff is definitely mom's department. And they do have programs where you can take the pictures and you'll download them digitally, and then you can send that digital copy to a picture book making program, like,
yeah,
uh,
there you go.
yeah, company.
There you
And
go. Because
works for
I
you.
got pictures. I got black and white. I got black and white. I have color pictures. I also have slides,
That's
and
awesome.
I also have video. Remember, you sent off all those videotapes and had them
Right.
copied.
Yep.
I still got that. So I'm trying. This is a catalog that hopefully will endure. I'll know that my prodigy, my posterity,
Posterity.
is have something of not just me, but family.
Why we do this is because I think that we get really mixed up in people that don't matter. Like, you don't know
Yeah.
that person, you have no idea who they are, and you know everything about them. We'll have other guests on this show. We'll have other guests that come onto this podcast. That everyday average person's story is the most important story. It's the everyday person who is the most important in this world.
Rather than generals and presidents and
They're important
governors
too,
and all
but
that stuff. Yeah, it's nice to know about them, but they're strangers.
they
They're
are.
strangers.
Have friends and family
And,
that love
and
their
they're
stories.
the only thing that makes them unique, and this is something I've always thought about. The only thing that makes people unique is an accident of place and time. And I'll be 79 in January. I'm still kicking. You know,
Yeah, you are.
I might die. The 79 is a cursed time. Uncle Uncle Ralph. He was
Mhm.
79.
Okay.
My mother, 79. My
Yeah,
grandfather,
you're not allowed to
Crenshaw,
go 79.
79. That's it. I said I'm gonna make it 80. No, no doubt.
You have to live to be able
I'm gonna break the
to.
curse.
Gonna break the
I'm gonna
curse.
the curse is it's ending with me.
That's right.
That's
There's a
right.
lot of
I'm gonna live.
curses with you.
I was talking to one of my church named Anderson. His name is Anderson, and he's has Swedish background. Well, his
Mhm.
great great grandfather was Mats Matson, and Mats Matson married at 80 years old. He married a 32-year-old woman. They had
Wow.
7 children. He lived to be 119 years old and outlived his wife.
Wow.
His wife died
Dang.
at like his wife died at like 55 after having 7 children. An 80-year-old man going out and impregnating a 32. Oh, whoa, that's a Swede for you. Yeah,
Go Sweden.
probably a Viking. Probably his his great grandfather is probably a Viking.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt it.
Oh yeah, you know,
And some
that's
sweet.
one thing when I was growing up. When I was growing up, of course, I was an Olson, which is a Swedish name, but I'm half German,
Yeah, you're
really
half Swede,
over
half
half
German.
German, because my mother's side, Menshaws, you know, and then they all married Germans, so that side of the family, that's 50% of the family, right? Of my
Yeah.
heritage is genetically 50%. So that's 50% there. And then my dad, okay, on his side of the family, is Swedish, except you go back far enough, and mom, the Robothams, which was his mother. Now the father, Grandpa Olson, was 100% Swedish. His mother and father were both Swedish, but my
Hmm.
grandmother was English. She was a Robotham. But then you go back a
Hmm.
little bit, like you start poking around and you find Germans again. So there's some
Yeah.
German coming from my grandmother, from my grandmother's side, which would be my father's side, and my mother's side is all. There's probably go back, you probably find, you know, English and everything, but it's
Yeah.
mainly German. But yet I didn't, when I was growing up, I didn't ever say I was German, because you have to remember, I was born in 1947, 2 years after World War II. And it
Yeah.
was the
And
German,
you
we
were
fought
German.
the Germans, Everybody hated Germans. If you said you're a German, they'd say you're a freaking Nazi, you know, and, you know, your family should have been killed off by my family. So I didn't even claim that. I was
Yep.
Swedish. I was Swedish. And so that's where I've kind of, as I've grown older and everything, I've kind of really embraced the Swedish side and kind of rejected the German side, which is, you know, I've always like, I don't know, just of anything you can think of, I've always looked for this Swedish in it. Always looked,
Yeah.
you know, and always wanted to be as recognized as Swedish because of my last name and my mental whatever. I love this. I love the Swedish things and the Swedish
Absolutely.
side of, you know, Europe and Germany's, you know, for the last 100 years has been a bane on humanity. I mean, they have caused World War I and World War II were basically German, Austro-Hungarian, which is Germany, there, you know, and all just bad. And even going back in the 1870s, they fought the Franco-Prussian War because Prussia was the largest and the most influential of all the German city-states in 1871. And that's when Hindenburg united all the his city-states and made the country of Germany. But it was basically Prussian, and they
Yeah.
fought a Prussian, the French, so it's Franco, so French. The Prussians fought the French and kicked their butts. I mean, they disgraced the French. Hey, let's get back. You had enough history.
Okay. So today, so where we left off last time, we had left off with being in. Well, we talked about the taco fields. We talked about the story where you almost died. We left off with the fact that this was society down in the South, and this is what people had to deal with, whatever side you were on. We wanted to kind of focus back in on home life. Your dad had left for Turkey. He left for a year and a half. So we wanted to talk about Turkey today. A really interesting scenario and situation that was going on with your family. Grandma had to be by herself for a year and a half while your dad was out touring in Turkey with the Air Force.
Right.
So about that, and we'll also talk about what life was like for you and Grandma back at the house.
Okay. And I'll start off by saying that my dad was transferred to Incirlik Air Force Base in southeastern Turkey near the Syrian border. I had a friend who was also a dependent. She's a young lady, and her dad was stationed in Izmir Air Force Base, which was about 200 miles west of Incirlik. And she got to go to Turkey with her dad. And I said, "What?" And this was in the same time frame, as in the late 50s. And I said, "You mean you could go, the dependents could go to Izmir, but they couldn't go to Incirlik?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Whoa, that sucks, man."
Yeah.
I wish Dad would have got, orders to Izmir. But the underlying thing was that Incirlik was a CIA base. There was Air Force there, but there was also CIA, and they were making
Okay.
flights over Russia. They were taking off from Turkey, and they were flying across the Black Sea and going into like about where present day the Crimea, Ukraine. The present day they're basically flying over Ukraine and Moscow, and then they would land in Norway.
Mm.
And
So they're kind of like going up and
they
around and then
right,
landing.
and they would take, of course, pictures of everything they flew over. That cameras. They were flying U-2. They were flying. There was a U-2 base. There was a U-2 base in Incirlik, but not in Izmir. And so, I'll just go on this right now. Okay. There was a setting when Dad got there in 1958. There was a liquid oxygen trailer. So they make liquid oxygen. They just take air and they purify it. They get rid of the nitrogen and all the inert gases, and they produce pure oxygen. And this trailer, this liquid oxygen, was next driveway. And Dad, he goes to his boss. He says, "What's with that trailer sitting down? It's in the way. Can we get rid of it?" He said, "Oh, it's a liquid oxygen trailer. It broke down a couple of years ago. We haven't been able to fix it. We just get liquid oxygen from Izmir. They truck it over." "Oh, okay." So Dad says, "Can I work on it?" And his boss says, "Sure, go ahead and
Okay.
knock yourself out." So Dad goes, he'd never worked on anything like this before. He was a small engine. He was a fixed plant expert, and he also worked on small engines. But he was a great mechanic. And he goes in this liquid oxygen plant. He tinkers around with it for about 2 or 3 months and gets it working. And they said, "What?" "Yeah, I got it working, making good oxygen." "Oh, okay. Well, we'll stop trucking it from Izmir and we'll start using your stuff." So
Yeah.
they started producing liquid oxygen right there, and they were putting the liquid oxygen in these U-2s. They were flying over Russia. And so Dad actually made liquid oxygen. If you're a history buff, you'll know that I think it was in 1959, they shot down a U-2 over Russia, and the pilot was Francis Gary Powers. He was supposed to have taken cyanide and killed himself because he was a CIA employee and he wasn't supposed to be captured because he knew everything. He knew all about the U-2s. He knew about where they were flying. He knew how they were made, what kind of engine. I mean, he was a a powerhouse of intelligence for the Russians. And so the Russians, they took him prisoner. He parachuted out, and they grabbed him and they took him prisoner, and they had a trial. Of course, a kangaroo court had a trial in Russia. Big news thing, painted him as being this nasty American CIA guy. I'm sure I don't know if he divulged any information, but who knows. Anyway, finally they traded him. They traded a Russian spy for Gary Powers, and he came back to America and wrote a book. And typical,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, he became a big. He was on What's My Line, made, he was, yeah, anyway,
Oh,
became a big shot. And, but, Dad's liquid oxygen was in Francis Gary Powers' U-2 that was shot down. So that's just kind of a side note that Dad, the master mechanic, got something working that
doing
nobody
something
else could.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. But anyway, getting
Pretty
back to,
cool like that. He could do all kinds of
yeah,
really neat stuff.
yeah, getting back to Dad he was over there for 18 months. It was a non-comp, what do you call it? Uh, you couldn't bring your dependents anyway. I can't remember the
Right.
word for it. A non-accompanied tour, and part of it, and I'm sure looking back, I didn't know it at the time, and it took a few years of being around them, ins and outs, that I figured out it's because it was the CIA was there, and they didn't want
Yeah, that's
dependents there messing around, getting to know the CIA or something. All that hubbub about the CIA. Anyway,
probably more of a lockdown kind of base. They couldn't have a lot of people coming in and
right,
out. That's dangerous.
yeah.
That's
And
not safe.
The Turks they were very proud people, and it could have been something with
Very
the
proud.
Turkish people because it was right near the city of Adana, Turkey, which
Mhm.
is the biggest city in southeastern Turkey. And there may have been something there with the Turkish government, but I'm pretty sure it was because of the CIA. And here's a little side note too, is they had the the base was jointly administered by the Turks and Americans, okay? And they had Turkish police on the gates. They flew a Turkish flag at the headquarters of the base,
Okay.
and and right at the entrance of the base, they had a statue of Ataturk. Now, Ataturk was the president of Turkey back in the 20s, and Turkey was basically the Ottoman Empire was still like it collapsed during World War One.
Right.
But and Ataturk came in and took this real primitive, backward society where they were still wearing the men still wore fezzes, the little red hats with a tassel on top, and they had big beards. And Ataturk says, "Cut your beard, get rid of the fez. You're
Wow.
a Europe because Turkey is actually Western Turkey is in Europe. If you're
Yeah, it's like the south of yeah.
right, Bosphorus Straits that comes out of the Black Sea on the west side is Europe.
Isn't it really
That's where
Greece?
Istanbul is in Europe. The rest
Okay,
of Turkey's in Asia.
got it.
Okay, so they're like a melting pot. And Ataturk
Mm,
wanted the country to be European and stop being Asian. And so he
okay.
was a big hero to the Turkish people. They adored him because he brought them into the 20th century. So they had a statue of Ataturk at the gate. Some drunk airman came through at night or whatever and threw a beer at the statue and hit the
Not a good
statue
idea.
and broke the beer. And these Turks immediately grabbed him and pulled him out of the car and arrested him right there.
Yep.
And according to Dad, I'm not sure if it's true, but Dad said he was never seen again.
Whoa.
The Turks took him, and that was it. He was
Were they
gone.
allowed to do that?
Oh yeah, there was a joint base. It was Turkish. It was a Turk. It was Turkey. It was their country,
Yeah.
and they had Turkish flags flying at, like I said, at the headquarters building, and they had Turkish gate guards. They didn't have American.
Their
They might have
country.
had American. There might have been air police somewhere on the base, but the gate was Turkish. They were Turkish guards. And when he hit that statue, he was gone. There was no if and or buts. They probably he probably took him out and executed him or something. But it said Dad said he was never seen again.
They might have just been like, "You're going home" or something, you know.
I don't
No,
know.
no,
Maybe
yeah.
the
No,
American stepped in and said, this guy was intoxicated. He's a he's probably a 19-year-old airman, and he's a stupid kid. So let's just we'll apologize. Let's send him back home. Let's just get him out
just
of here.
send
He
him
won't
out.
be in Turkey anymore, and he'll never come back to Turkey. And
I'm
then it
sure
might
they
have
did
agreed, but
negotiations. They probably
he
did negotiations.
disappeared. He
Yeah.
disappeared. Nobody ever saw him again. Anyway, that's just a side note of, and that might have
How
been why
serious they
we
were.
couldn't go there, is because
Yeah.
it was strictly basically a Turkish base with Americans staying there.
Hmm.
And maybe Izmir was a American base with Turks staying there. Maybe it was the
Yeah.
exact opposite. I don't know. But it was, I was really upset when this girl, and it's a dependent girl, said my dad got orders to Izmir and we went over there with him. And she started talking about where they lived, and I'm going, oh man, no,
Damn.
dang, because all the time I was in the Air Force, Alaska was that was it. That
Yeah.
was and I had friends. I had a friend who was born in Iceland. His dad was stationed at Reykjavik Air Base in
Wow.
Iceland, and he was cool. He had joint citizenship. When he got to be 21, he could decide whether he wanted to be an American or an Icelandic. I had nothing then, and I knew kids from had been to Japan because there was
Wow.
tons of bases in Japan.
Oh
There
yeah.
was like 11 Air Force bases in Japan, and there was in the all over Europe. There was bases in Germany and France, or not France, but in Germany and Italy, lots in Italy and Spain, big bases in Spain and Turkey, and
But
that was going to be that would have been my dream thing would be to go go to Turkey or anywhere, go anywhere in Europe or Asia. That'd been cool, but Alaska was it, and I was just a kid, so I didn't really. And when I found out this girl had been
boy, you
had
were
been over in his. And I said, "What?" And it was exactly the same time because I didn't meet her until I was in Wisconsin. I met her in Wisconsin, and
okay.
she started talking. I said, "Yeah, my dad was stationed in Shirley." She said, "Well, I was in Izmir." I said, "What? What is you what?" And exactly the same time. Like I could have went to but anyway, yeah.
Well, that I
Dad,
think that kind
dad,
of made it a thing for you later on in life. Doing you became a world
So
traveler
I
after
still
that.
haven't been to Turkey. I still haven't been to Turkey. I'm gonna have. I think I'll fly over there just to say, yeah, I'll go to Adana. I think Incirlik Air Base is still there, so I could go. But I'll go to Adana and say, yeah, my dad was here back in the 50s. Made liquid oxygen here. And another side note is, Dad was an expert marksman. He grew up on
Yeah,
a
you're
farm in eastern
saying that.
Colorado, shooting jackrabbits, all that stuff. And boy, he was a good shot. And when he was over there, he got on the Air Force pistol team, and he went to Germany
Yeah,
with the Air Force.
yeah.
Now, I didn't know about this for years. He didn't talk about it, but I did have a picture of him shooting a 45. He'd go out on the beach on the because Adana is right on the Mediterranean.
Mm,
Beautiful place. Oh, the water is blue and nice and warm, and I could have swim. I could have went swimming. Anyway, anyway, Dad down on the beach with his 45. He shot a 1911 Colt 45, as standard issue for the military at that time, and he would shoot offhanded because in the competition you can't do the uh, two-handed grip and all with you shoot offhanded, one hand,
the
boom,
one hand.
and
Okay.
he was just good. and he got in that pistol team, went to Germany. Didn't tell anybody about it. I guess he wanted us to know he was in Germany because he brought a typewriter up there when he was in Germany. He bought an Olympia, a manual, portable typewriter, beautiful little typewriter. Just, I mean, made like a watch. It was incredible. I don't have it anymore, but I wish I would have kept it. And it was a manual, not electric, a manual, German-made portable uh, typewriter. Dad bought it in Germany. Didn't tell me. He didn't tell me he bought it in Germany. Anyway, anyway,
He's like,
anyway,
just gonna keep all these.
all of his friends in the Air Force at that time would do a little trick. They would save up their money, and they would catch a military flight from Izmir or from Incirlik up to Germany, and they would take their hard-earned pay, and they would buy a Mercedes Benz because Mercedes Benz. Remember, this was only 10 years after World War II, and Germany was still trying to recover. So Mercedes Benz were dirt freaking cheap. You could get a really nice, like I'll say a 220D for like $1,000 or some ridiculously low price. And these guys would go, and it was all duty free too, no taxes. So they would buy these Mercedes Benz and drive them down to Turkey. And then when they got transferred from Turkey, the Air Force would ship the Mercedes back to this wherever they were going, stateside, free. There's no cost at all. They would ship that car for them. And so a lot of these guys were getting these Mercedes Benz. And I asked Dad once, I said, Dad, why didn't you go get a Mercedes Benz from Germany? He didn't tell me he got the typewriter there, but he said, no way am I going to drive a Nazi car. I hate the Nazis. I don't like Germany. And I went, whoa, really? Yeah, he says, I had friends died in Germany fighting the Germans, fighting the Nazis. I'm not buying their freaking cars. I would buy I would buy a Japanese car either.
Did you know that he had friends that had died in World War II in
Yeah,
Germany?
absolutely. He was stationed in Hickam Field, which is right at Pearl Harbor. He was stationed at Hickam Field in the Marine Corps barracks. Okay, there was about 20 Marines there that were gate guards at Hickam Field. And because if they have a Navy base, it's always Marine guards, gate guards.
Yeah.
And the Navy didn't start using gate guards until, I don't know, probably 1960 or something. They always used Marines. And all these Marines were his friends. And he got transferred to Samoa 6 months before Pearl Harbor. And the Japanese blew up the Marine barracks and killed all his friends. And he was pissed.
Whoa.
I
didn't know
mean, he
that.
was upset. And then besides that, he still had friends that were in still active duty Marines because he went through Marine boot camp 1937, 1938. So that was only 2 or 3 years before Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. So he had friends. I mean, he was still a young man, and these were all his young men friends that were in the Marines, and they went to Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. I mean, they were all over the Pacific and getting killed by the bucketfuls. I don't know if he had any friends left from his boot camp and his initial time in the Marines.
They were close.
3 or 4 years before Pearl Harbor, all of his Marine buddies, and he had pictures of him being in Hawaii, and he was showing him these beer busts and stuff, and he's out fishing, swimming, and I actually saw Dad's legs. I saw one picture. He was in a swimming trunk, and I said, "Dad's got legs, dang!" Because he never wore shorts. He never went swimming. I never saw Dad's legs all the time I was growing up. I didn't, you know. So here's this picture from like 1940, maybe in the late early 41. That Dad's in swimming trunks. Look, Dad got lit. Anyway, anyway, he had lots of friends. He not just the Marines on the gate, but I mean other Marines, because all the ships, the capital ships, the larger ships in the Navy had Marine guards on board. They had a Marine detachment on board,
Yeah.
and they were for ceremonial purposes. And also, you have to remember that the Marines were formed back in the sailing days when they were fighting. They were fighting like two ships that pull up next to each other and just start shooting with their cannons. And then the Marines would go up in the rigging, up in on the mast, and they would shoot down onto the other ship and kill the sailors on the other ship. And that's where the Marines got started. They were the Navy's army, and anytime the Navy would have to do something on the land, they would have these Marines on board that could go in because they were trained. They were all trained military infantry, basically. And the sailors, they were just a bunch of freaking swabbies. They didn't know, probably didn't know one end of a gun from the other. They couldn't, no way could they go in there and do any kind of infantry. They had to have the freaking Marines on board to do that. So he had Marine buddies from all these ships, because there was like 10 battleships that all had Marines on board. There were cruisers, heavy cruisers. None of the destroyers didn't have Marines, I don't think. It was all of the what they call capital ships, the aircraft carriers and the battleships, and they all had Marines on board. So they would all party together, and Dad had all these Marine buddies, and a lot of them died fighting the Japanese, and Dad did not like the Japanese,
Yeah, I know he
and he
was
did not
very,
like Germany. He
yeah,
just he was a, I would say he was typical though.
yeah,
I mean, it
very,
wasn't like, oh, he was just this bigot. I mean, a lot of men, especially the army guys that fought in Germany and France and landed at Normandy, thousands of them were killed,
yeah.
thousands of them. And so and I'll tell you, the survivors, they probably felt the same way about the Germans. They
Hmm.
probably said, no, they're all Nazis. Forget it. I'm not buying anything from Germany.
Oh
So
yeah,
any German material, any of their stuff was probably bought by people who did not fight in World War II in Germany, or were not stationed. In other words, there were men all over the world. There was like 10 million guys in uniform World War II, all over the world. Just like your grandfather, Emily's father was stationed in Jamaica as a weatherman.
yes, weatherman.
So he was ambivalent. He didn't know, and he might have, some of his friends that he went through school with maybe went to Germany and got killed, but it wasn't like he was out there, I mean, going mano a mano with the enemy and shooting and getting shot in in combat. It's
Yeah,
different. It's like in Vietnam, you know, you had, people who were on board ships off the shore. They never saw there's guys now, that are getting disability pay for Agent Orange that were on board aircraft carriers and never saw the country of Vietnam. Never saw it. Never saw a Vietnamese person. But they're getting Agent Orange pay because Agent Orange was everywhere.
everywhere.
It was everywhere. It was on
Covered.
they sprayed it all over. It was probably drifted out to sea,
Oh
and
yeah,
there's sailors who got the Agent Orange. There's like a whole list of about 20 things that are directly attributed to Agent Orange exposure. And a lot of these sailors on these carriers that were 20 miles offshore, they couldn't even see Vietnam, and they're getting disability pay. Now that's and then I was right in the freaking middle of that crap, and seeing Vietnamese every day, every minute of every day
Yeah,
practically, and there's these
you're right
guys
down
that, they're offshore 20 miles. They don't even, then they're getting the same thing I'm getting. And I don't begrudge them, but they have a
well,
different,
it's
they have a different perspective.
absolutely.
They were never went mano a mano with Viet Cong or the NBA or, they don't even know. You talk to them about, what's a claymore? I don't know. Well,
Yeah,
I
they
used to
had a
carry
totally different
claymores.
experience.
I used to carry claymores in my backpack. I know
Yeah,
exactly what they are. And,
exactly.
so I have a whole different uh, real reality of
Yes.
Vietnam. The guys that were on these ships and stuff, they had a job. They were launching those aircraft and blowing the crap out of the Vietnamese. But
It was
their
totally a
idea of
totally
their
different
perspective
situation.
of Vietnam is totally different than mine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally different because they never saw Vietnamese when they were over there. They might have come back to San Francisco and seen them walking down the street,
Yeah,
or
but that's
they
not
come had
that's
immigrated from Vietnam and they might even married a Vietnamese woman. But
yeah,
that's different. That's different because
totally different perspective.
she has her thing going on and she's Vietnamese. Whole different world, whole
Whole, whole
different
different thing.
aspects. So that's where Dad was coming from. He probably never saw Japanese. He was in Pearl Harbor. Well, there's Japanese living on Hawaii, so he probably saw the Japanese Americans, and they were okay people. I mean,
He wasn't even
crazy.
exposed to like Samoans and stuff.
Right.
Now that's one story I would love to tell is his
Okay.
time
That.
in
Yeah.
Samoa. We don't have time
Yeah.
today, but I definitely want to dive into that.
Okay. We want to get back to Turkey, don't we?
I know we're running out of time. Danny's getting hungry. It's
Oh boy.
it's lunchtime.
Okay.
But
Well, okay. I'll close with one more story about Turkey.
perfect. Perfect.
Okay,
Okay.
one more story. Okay, Dad he would drive around Turkey, and I think he got down into Syria too. He'd drive because Syria wasn't freaking war zone then. But anyway, he drove around and he went over to this ruin in southern Turkey. He got to poking around in this ruin. I have slides of this ruin. Okay, and it was just totally, the roof was gone and it was just like three walls left, but a lot of real beautiful mosaics on the
Mm-hmm.
walls and floors and everything. Well,
Turkey.
come to find out, this was one of the first Christian churches ever in the history of the world.
Wow.
This was one of because the Christians back then, they didn't they didn't really have they didn't have, St. Peter's Basilica or anything. They just were like a roving band of believers.
Yeah.
And where Ephesus is in Turkey. So the book of Ephesians was written about Ephesus, which is in Turkey. And this town it wasn't Ephesus, but it was one of the first places that Christians actually could gather together because the Roman Empire was still there, but it was kind of weak in that part of Turkey, so they could build this church, and it was one of the first Christian churches ever built. And I got pictures of it, and it's probably, I don't know if it's ever been restored or is it completely gone because this was like 70 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
so that
Bring
I've
back
got
some
those slides, and
memories.
I will try to get those included in whatever journal that results from this podcast, because that I think is important that people
That would be neat.
know that's where the Christianity got started, was in southern Turkey.
Yeah. I'll have to get
That's
with
where,
mom and figure out how to get all that stuff sent over to me so I can start using
yeah.
it here on the podcast. We'll figure it
Okay.
out. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
We got
And there's other stuff I got about Turkey. It's, you know,
Oh, we're gonna do like 2 or 3 or however many we want to do segments on this.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
we
yeah,
just got started.
we've literally just got started. That's a whole year and a half of stories and events and
Yep.
And we also, I mean, I had no idea about Pearl Harbor with Grandpa. I didn't even know that a whole bunch of his friends got killed. So that's something I learned today. And there for today. We had a really great podcast. We want to thank everybody for joining us today. And we are so grateful for all of you being here. Please comment, please share the videos that we make. We would love for you guys to tell your friends and family about it. And as always, please be safe out there, out in this crazy traffic. Please join us next week on Saturday to watch our next podcast. But other than that, we love you guys, and we will see you soon.